August 12th, 30 B.C., Alexandria. A queen sits alone in her palace chamber, dressed in gold and royal purple. Two attendants stand beside her, one holding a basket of figs. In 10 minutes, all three will be dead. But this is not the story of how Cleopatra died. This is the story of the 10 days before, when the man who would become Rome's first emperor dismantled her empire without violence, without chains, and without an army. No blade, no execution, just isolation, manipulation, and one unspoken threat. The weapon that finally broke Cleopatra wasn't Rome itself. It was her son. And the most disturbing part isn't what happened in that chamber, but how methodically Octavian ensured she had no other choice. August 1st, 30 B.C. Alexandria's harbor was burning. Just a year earlier, Cleopatra and Mark Antony had assembled the largest naval force the Mediterranean had ever seen. Over 500 warships and legions from a dozen kingdoms, everything riding on one decisive battle. They lost it at Actium, not in hours, but in minutes. Roman ships rammed theirs, fires spread across decks, commanders abandoned formation, and Antony's flagship chased Cleopatra's retreat, while his navy died behind him. Overnight, the alliance collapsed. Kings withdrew their troops. Senators pledged loyalty to Octavian. Gold meant for soldiers vanished into private vaults. By the time Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt, their army existed only on paper. A year later, Octavian's legions stood outside Alexandria. Inside the city, betrayal accelerated. Antony's cavalry defected first, riding out in full formation and switching sides without a single casualty. Then his infantry followed. Then his remaining ships, which sailed out of the harbor and surrendered before a battle even began. The palace emptied. Officials fled. Servants vanished. Guards abandoned their posts. Antony walked through silent corridors, shouting orders to soldiers who no longer existed. Cleopatra did not panic. She calculated. She retreated into her mausoleum, a massive stone structure she had built years earlier, part tomb, part fortress. It had one entrance, walls 3 feet thick, and no windows. Inside, she gathered Egypt's accumulated wealth: gold, jewels, incense, ebony, centuries of Ptolemaic treasure, and sealed the doors from the inside. Ancient sources disagree about her intention. Some say she planned to burn everything, denying Octavian both wealth and spectacle. Others believe she intended to negotiate from a position of strength. What she did next changed everything. She sent a message to Antony claiming Cleopatra was dead. Antony believed it immediately. Already unraveling, he ordered his slave Eros to kill him. Eros refused and took his own life instead. Antony drove a sword into his stomach. The wound was slow, but fatal. As he bled on the floor, the truth arrived. Cleopatra was alive inside the mausoleum. Plutarch describes what followed with almost surgical precision. Antony's body was carried to the sealed tomb. Cleopatra refused to open the doors, not from cruelty, but from calculation. Opening them meant losing her only fortification. Instead, ropes were lowered from a window, and Antony's dying body was hauled up the stone wall. Cleopatra and her attendants pulled him inside themselves, dragging a Roman general while he bled. He died in her arms. When his body stopped moving, Cleopatra was completely alone. No army, no allies, no kingdom. Octavian was already inside Alexandria. Octavian did not want Cleopatra dead. Dead queens do not parade. For years, he had fought Romans against Romans in brutal civil wars. Publicly, he needed a living Cleopatra as a symbol. A queen in chains would allow him to rewrite history, presenting Rome as defending itself against a foreign threat. But Cleopatra was dangerous. She had survived Julius Caesar's assassination. She had rebuilt her power repeatedly. She spoke multiple languages, negotiated with kings, commanded fleets. If given time, she could have destroyed herself and everything she controlled, denying Octavian both treasure and spectacle. He moved with precision. He did not storm the mausoleum. He sent Gaius Proculeius, a man Antony had once trusted, to speak at the sealed entrance. Proculeius offered vague assurances of safety and negotiation. While Cleopatra was distracted, Roman soldiers climbed the walls and entered through the same window Antony had been pulled through. Cleopatra realized what was happening, moments too late. Ancient sources disagree. Some say she reached for a dagger. Others suggest poison. But it did not matter. She was stopped. Not beaten, not chained, not harmed. Simply transferred from mausoleum to palace, from queen to prisoner. Her captivity was elegant, almost deceptive. She remained in luxurious chambers. Her servants stayed, her belongings untouched. But every door was watched, every meal inspected, every object examined. A guard outside had one order: she must not die. This was not mercy. It was logistics. Octavian needed her alive, intact, and compliant for his triumph. 3 days later, Octavian visited. No guards. A deliberate gesture. He spoke politely, offered no threats, no promises. He hinted at her children's futures, suggested cooperation might influence their fate. Cleopatra tried to negotiate. She gave inventories, offered plans for smooth transitions, assured stability. Octavian listened, took notes, thanked her, and left. Over the next days, the pattern repeated. Cleopatra believed she was bargaining. She was not. Octavian was cataloging. Every detail she provided became a tool to seize wealth and neutralize supporters. Isolation deepened. The only voice she heard was his. Then Cleopatra stopped eating. No demands, no statements, just refusal. Within days, she weakened, developed a fever. Guards reported it immediately. Octavian acted carefully. He did not threaten, force-feed, or punish. He simply clarified one fact. Her children were in his custody, and if she harmed herself, they would suffer consequences. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. She resumed eating the same day. The trap was complete. Cleopatra had 4 children. 3 were politically manageable. 1 was not, Caesarion, the biological son of Julius Caesar. As long as he lived, Octavian's legitimacy remained vulnerable. Cleopatra had already sent him east, far from Rome. Everything she did afterward, negotiations, cooperation, was theater, buying time. Then the message came. Caesarion had returned, convinced by his tutor that Octavian intended to make him king. Cleopatra understood instantly. There would be no mercy. She stopped negotiating, stopped offering information. According to Plutarch, she requested only one thing: permission to visit Antony's tomb. Octavian allowed it. On August 12th, Cleopatra bathed and dressed in full royal regalia. She visited Antony's tomb, performed the proper rituals, returned to her palace, ordered figs, wrote a letter, dismissed all servants except her 2 closest attendants, and sealed herself inside her chamber. When Octavian's guards finally broke in, they found 3 bodies. Cleopatra lay on a golden couch, dressed as a queen. 1 attendant lay dead. The other, barely alive, straightened Cleopatra's crown with her last breath. A Roman guard asked, "Was this well done?" She answered, "It was fitting for a queen descended from kings." And then she died. The exact method of death remains uncertain. Poison hidden in figs, a hairpin, or jewelry. But Cleopatra was 39 years old. She had ruled Egypt for 21 years. Octavian conquered everything she built, but she denied him the one thing he wanted most, her alive and broken in his triumph. He honored her request, buried her beside Antony with full ceremonial rites, and finished his work. Caesarion was quietly executed. Cleopatra's other children were taken to Rome under Octavian's control. Egypt became his personal province. Within 3 years, Octavian became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. Cleopatra's death was not romance. It was not weakness. It was the last move in a game where every other option had been systematically removed. Octavian conquered Egypt, but he never broke her. And the most disturbing part of her final 10 days isn't what happened in that chamber. It's how carefully he made sure she had no other choice.